Do I get paid?
No.
It's K&M Geekly! This week, we're gonna have a civil war, Nick is gonna pick some horror, and we're gonna talk about Wrestlemania XL in Philly. And now your host, Mike and Deglio.
What is up, team? Welcome to K&M Geekly, your sneak peek at a trio of geeks talking about some of the things getting them through their weeks. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Keith from an undisclosed location in Vermont where the sun has begun to shine again. Nick, Dr. Nick, from the undisclosed middle school somewhere in Pennsylvania that he's definitely in an important meeting.
Oh, very important meeting.
Myself also in that very same important
Pennsylvania
meeting.
taxpayers, this is what you're paying for right now.
We're off school hours. No one knows what time we're actually filming.
That's a good point.
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, noon is definitely not like school hour.
I don't have a meeting happening right now that I'm not at. So welcome to K&M Geekly, the most underprepared show for nobody on the internet. Happy to be here. We have
Should be a t-shirt.
I promised last week when I did this by myself that we would come on and talk to the fan about WrestleMania. And so we're going to talk about our experiences in a moment, but I wanted to start the show just checking in. How's everybody doing, Keith? How's Vermont? How's house sitting? What are the updates from your neck of the wood?
Boy, I tell you, the updates from Vermont are very different from the updates in New Jersey. So, let me see. Most of my life now, like I'm dealing with the chickens, like I'm pulling eggs, and so my father like has like the tiny little egg empire. So like I clean the eggs, get them ready to go out. Had a bear last night come by and wipe out all the bird seed. So I have to go repair that. And there's a reason why there's a big iron rebar thing protecting the chicken coop because not once but twice have the chickens been wiped out by a bear here in the local. So it's mud season. There's mud everywhere. The dog is very happy. It's a full-on Vermont lifestyle here.
Do you have a screen somewhere within an arm shot of you that is playing voir dire?
I did until I clicked away from it and the remote's too far away. So
I had a suspicion. I woke up today and all I could think was like, this is a day for Keith. This is a day for Keith to be watching.
No, for sure. This is my lunch break from watching voir dire. So,
all right, Dr. Nick, how we doing at school? I know we're going to talk a little bit in Weekly Rad about something you're excited about coming up, so I don't want to spoil it just yet. But what else is going on? Are you recuperating well from? Well, it's sunny here in Pennsylvania again, so you get outside?
It is sunny in Pennsylvania. We got some good vitamin D cooking. I would say that a couple of exciting things that have been happening that aren't exciting at all I've really been getting into, I don't want to call it bird watching. I would call it a ridiculous Indeglio obsession of getting video bird feeders and trying to attract as many birds as humanly possible, which I've been starting to do. So one of my assistant principals, Ildi, is very much into bird watching, has some security cams that are built into the bird feeders. So got a couple of those, have hooked them up on the back deck and the front porch area and have begun watching. So Mrs. Barnes, my mother-in-law, is also very much into bird feeders, bird watching, bird houses. So she's been helping me identify some birds, found a couple good apps that do the identification, and have realized that a lot of the prettiest birds aren't really all that rare. So the one I actually thought we had some rare ones, and they're really just like finches and things like that. So I'm looking for hummingbirds next, which is like a whole other world. So that's like next level.
Oh, yeah. We have hummingbird feeders right here, and it's early in the season for them, but we have them constantly.
See, so I have not had any yet. The migration apparently is happening this week and next week, so I'm super. They're set up now, so we're ready to go on those hummingbird feeders.
They're fun.
The other security camera piece is that we've got the new network set up. Mike does have to tweak it at some point because I did not do the setup totally properly, but Mama Reitz had a fall, and I've ordered a large spotlight, a floodlight actually. It's a solar powered floodlight that's coming today. And I put up a security camera that's right next to where that floodlight's going to go. So I'm working the angles there. So a little bit of a screwing, installing, security cam set up there, which is always a fun project, right? So any type of like little project you get to do, setting something up to make someone's life easier, even though Rita has changed her mind on, she thinks it's going to be too much light now, too much light on her walkway, but it's too late. It's happening.
Yeah, and then I'm on the other end just getting her a life alert because I was like, really, the lowest tech solution is the best solution. Like, just give her a button to hit when she fall down. I think that's really, let's boil it down. To know my mom is an exercise in frustration, but also education of now you understand a lot of our neuroses sort of have trickled down.
It is interesting when you get to the age where you start to see how your brain got built in your parents.
Hey, CEO Jen's home. Hey,
what's up, Jen?
She had a nice weekend in New Hope. I'll tell you a little bit about that in my weekly rad. Anyway, so I'm glad everybody's well. I'm glad the vitamin D is flooding in for all. Keith, you look so saturated. It's nice. I want to talk to you guys first about you know me. I get myself out to the bleeding edge. I had a little bit of a weekend alone this past weekend, so I decided to take myself to the movies to see Civil War. That's when the background will come in. And
wow.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
The new A24 joint, A24 indie studio that has had such acclaim and success recently that now they're starting to pump some budget into their films. This is directed by Alex Garland, who you might know from having written, he kind of got his big breakout. He wrote 28 Days Later for Danny Boyle, and then he started directing Ex Machina, which is incredible. It earned an Academy Award nom.
Great movie, yeah.
And so I was really excited. And 28 Days Later is like a classic, kind of. I really love that film. And we'll talk a little bit more horror later this week. I'm not a huge horror guy. I appreciate it as a genre, but it's not like my thing. Long story short, you can see some of that in his film here. So Civil War. You might have seen some of the trailers, some of the press around it. I've stayed kind of away from it. And I want to be as spoiler-free because I know this is one I think a lot of people will probably check out.
I'm actually looking forward to seeing it. Yeah. When it shows up on Plex.
Yes. Despite what you may have heard about the movie or any sort of impressions you might be bringing in politically, I'm here to tell you that it is not that movie. Which maybe is a good thing for you, maybe it's a bad thing for you. Maybe we're hoping it's that movie and that it's taking a stand about our current politics or has something to say about our current politics.
Since the plot involves Texas and California teaming up, we know it's not quite the...
It's not just that. It's also takes place after a good piece of time into when this Civil War has taken place. We do get to know a little bit about the president and the sort of general tenor of what's happening, but it's very much at arm's length. You could, I'm sure, upon introspection and analyzation and podcasts that are devoted to this movie alone, you could derive some takes, but it really is not interested in that movie, which is interesting because they do seem to lean into it in the trailers and such, which maybe that's just marketing.
It does seem like it, yeah.
But it is not. It is very much not that movie. It is very much a movie about. Whereas, do you remember the movie Night Stalker with Jake Gyllenhaal?
Mm-hmm.
Or Nightcrawler, where he's sort of a salacious paparazzo.
He was good. That was a good movie.
Yes, it's sort of that movie. In regards to embedded war photojournalism, and it is following sort of a ragtag band of photojournalists who are attempting to interview the president in the later stages of this Civil War. They have their reasons for wanting to do so. They have their different reasons for being photojournalists, and you sort of get to know them as a group of friends. But it is sort of a love letter to journalism and photojournalism, but also a cautionary tale. And I will say this. My critique is simply that the movie is a little thin on plot, right? It is... The machinations of the plot are pretty simple. These four people want to get there. It's a road trip movie in many ways.
Right.
They spend a little time. We get to know them as characters and their sort of inter friendships and such, but all of it takes place so late in the arc of their friendship and of the war that you don't get a lot of lore. Like if you're one of those people who likes to go through the video game and like read all the bits and the bobs and the learns all the things, you're not getting a lot of that, right? However, on the flip, the score of this movie, which uses a lot of actual music and it's sort of a contemporary, almost pop rock type of score with a lot of sort of atonal instrumental dissonance overlaid. The music is by Ben Salisbury and Jeff Barrow. It is excellent. The needle drops are perfect. The score is mixed for like Dolby Atmos 11 channels. So there are times where very, very specifically they decide to have some of the music panned over here, but then like just the guitar strings plinking are back here. And it's all in service of the story. In addition to that, they use a lot of negative space. There will be explosions or things that happen that shut the sound entirely. And so the theater goes dead quiet and like really horrific images or whatnot will be juxtaposed on the screen. The score is just incredible, incredible storytelling. And not just the score, but the sound effects. I'm going to give specific shout out to the sound effects. As Keith knows, we've talked about many times. That's how important that is. And the mixing, perfect. So happy I saw this in IMAX. Also, the cinematography, which is by Rob Hardy, is breathtaking. You would hope that a movie about photojournalism, about photo storytelling, would look beautiful, and it is. There are so many delicate, beautiful shots of like flowers growing in a specific spot next to dead bodies, and what they also do really effectively is when they take pictures, they will direct cut to the photograph, developed and shown as it would be in sort of like in an expose
cool.
or whatnot.
And
and the photography is excellent. It is a masterclass in visual storytelling, which is a call to 28 Days Later, which is also very much that way. The landscape shots are really post-apocalyptic, but sort of here. If you've ever played like a zombie apocalypse game where you're walking through, it's very much got those vibes. But in today's US, which I think does give it a very visceral, at-home feel, we don't get to see, whenever you get to see like photojournalism, it's usually shown back in World War II or Vietnam, where they were embedded in those wars, and it's always over there, or it's, Iraq or whatnot. It's over there,
it's conceptual a little bit. Yeah.
So it's very here, and it's very present, and it's really impactful because of that. There are two sequences in the movie. One is teased. It's Jesse Plemons. He's just sort of like guy in middle America during this, and he is just terrifying as only Jesse Plemons can be. And it is everything the trailer leads it to be. It is suspenseful. It is tense. It is, and you think it's the denouement of the movie, but it's not. The final sequence, which is an assault on the White House, it's not a spoiler to say, it's what the whole movie is leading up to, is absolutely a tour de force of performances, of filmmaking, of sound, of the use of the IMAX size. It is blockbuster style, and it has some ish goes down, and it has something to say, and overall, and it was under 2 hours, man. It is lean, this movie. It was great. I really enjoyed it. Kirsten Dunst, who I'm going to say I do not generally enjoy. I just don't find her to be compelling as an actress to me generally, but she's very good in this movie, playing very off Kirsten Dunst type. The cast is strong. The movie is strong. A24 has yet to let me down. This one is good. Just, I would say, release your expectations. If you want it to be overtly political, it's not. If you are afraid that it's overtly political, it's not. That's not to say it doesn't force some introspection, because it is a very autocratic type leadership that leads. However bad it must be for some decisions in the White House to be made, they do reference the president's third term, so I think that leads you to make some assumptions. for California, Texas, and Florida and the Carolinas to sort of secede independently and then work together to overthrow said president is whatever must have went down. It ain't. I ain't signing up for it. So you can draw some things, but that said, definitely worth a watch. I'm sure it will show up on streaming. A24, I think, does might be a 45-day release window, so sooner than later it'll be out for y'all. So anyway, that's Civil War. Really enjoyed it. Good night at the movies. Let me tell you, when you get the IMAX screen to yourself, and there's nobody else in the theater, that is a Mike and Deglio Sunday night.
That sounds great. I definitely want to watch that. And folks, A24, if you're listening, if you would like a screenplay that's kind of similar but very much political, I got one for you. I 100% have one kind of similar but super political. You would love it. It'd be a great movie.
Seems like where they should go next.
I think so.
There were some trailers of where they're going next. And I wish I could remember the name of the movie. I can't remember it. But they're doing the
one with The Rock next, aren't they?
Well, they're just haven't started filming that, so that's definitely not there.
Right.
There's one called By the TV's Glow or something like that. It's like a fantastical pop culture science fiction thing. It's looking very cool. Okay, so I want to talk WrestleMania, but we're going to backload that so folks who are not interested in wrestling can go about their day. So next,
bye, Mom.
Yeah, Nick, you sent me a list of horror television or streaming that you've been watching. Rather than enumerate it, I thought I would just give you the floor and say, what have you been watching? What do you recommend? And what do you not recommend?
It's hard. It was hard to put it all into encapsulate because this week alone, and the past 2 weeks, really, there's 3 big things that are happening either on television or in the theater. So the 2 things happening on television were the return of Chucky, which is in its 3rd season on SciFi in USA. This is the second half of season 3. And this coming Friday, Late Night with the Devil hits streaming. And this is a smaller film that only played in limited theaters, which I'm really, really excited about hitting streaming there. So with Late Night with the Devil, if you're not familiar with the premise, it's set in the 70s. It's an Exorcist-style film where basically you have a late-night talk show host whose ratings are failing. So in a shock-type move, he does a live exorcism on his show, and obviously things don't go well. So that's the premise of the movie. It's been getting good reviews. Yes. There's atmosphere. So really looking forward to seeing that. It didn't play anywhere local. So it really wasn't something we could see in the theater. Also opening this weekend in a more wide release is, oh my gosh, and is it Anne-Marie or Annabella? I wrote it down and I don't have the email open. Abigail, there we go. So this is the type of horror film that's not going to be a cinematic masterpiece, but it is going to be a fun watch, particularly in the theater. Premise of the movie is your typical setup for a heist type film where a bunch of not good people get hired to kidnap a child and hold the child overnight for ransom, right? So you got some shady characters holding a kid for ransom. The kid is a ballet dancer. The kid's parents are very rich. And it turns out that the kid is a vampire. So,
Billy Elliot, the vampire? Love it.
Mm-hmm. The tables get turned, and there's your movie. So for me, that's the kind of movie that's fun to watch in the theater because you're very claustrophobic, and the trailers have kind of led you to that. It looks like it's pretty, this is, and you're watching people get eaten who aren't good people to begin with, which makes it, more fun to kind of crunch popcorn too. What I really wanted to talk about though is Chucky. And here's why. Mike, you mentioned that for people who love lore, that you didn't get a lot of that in Civil War, right? Wasn't that type of film. I've got to tell you that one of my favorite all-time horror franchises is Child's Play and Chucky. And I got to take my hat off and give all the flowers to Don Mancini, who created the Child's Play series. And let me walk you through it and tell you why real quick. In 1988, the movie came out. Brad Dourif is the actor who played Charles Lee Ray, who becomes Chucky, right? Who becomes the doll. It's a pretty simple premise, although back in 1988, it got some attention because it was a little bit different, right? So you have a police officer chasing after the serial killer. They face off for the final face off in Chicago in a toy store. The serial killer knows he's caught, knows he's done. The cop shoots him. The killer's about to die. He invokes a voodoo curse, and his spirit gets put into this Good Guys doll, which is like a Cabbage Patch Kid, Teddy Ruxpin. It was playing on those toys of the 80s. And then mayhem ensues. Of course, no one believes the kid and the mom who gets, the kid gets the doll. Doll starts killing people. The rest you can rinse and repeat and kind of get the theme, right? Movie made a lot of money on a small budget, pretty successful. So what happens, right? You're going to get a sequel. What always happens in the sequel? Body count goes higher. The kills get a little more gruesome. Pretty much that's it, right? And that's pretty much all the sequel was, right? 2 years later, makes a little bit more money. They bring back Andy, who was the original survivor, the kid. This time he's in foster care. You meet his sister. It's not better. The movie's, about you get what you got in the first one, pretty much. That's, nothing really original or anything like that. Universal Pictures took it over from United Artists. They made some money. 1 year later, you get the third one. There's your trilogy. Third one's significantly worse. They push the timeline forward. It's a different actor playing Andy like 10 years later. He's a teenager in a military school. Not good at all. Should have been the end of the series. That should have been it, right? Don Mancini comes back in 1998 with Ronnie Yu as the director and totally goes meta and totally changes the tone away from serious horror and does Bride of Chucky, where they bring Jennifer Tilly in and they basically give you a horror comedy where the Chucky doll meets his old girlfriend, played by Jennifer Tilly, whose name was Tiff, kills her, puts her in a doll, and the two of them begin a horror movie killer romp, trying to find like some magical amulet or whatever it is to get themselves in human bodies again. Tons of fun. People loved it and made a lot of money. Brings 6 years later, they said, let's do another one. This one's called Seed of Chucky. You get Jennifer Tilly and Chucky back again. You get awesome special effects. They change the aesthetics of the dolls. This is where you get like these stitchings and scars and whatnot, like this imagery. And here at this point, we're like 15 years later, right? What's cool is that Don Mancini has taken the lore from the first movie and has never abandoned any of it. Everything that happened from the first movie through this movie, even though the tone of all these movies are so different and the quality is so different, everything exists in canon, and he calls back everything that has happened in all these movies, no matter how ridiculous.
In the TV series, he does.
We haven't gotten to the TV series yet. These are still in theater movies.
I mean, I've seen all of these, and I feel like I'm seeing them again.
Right? Sorry, sorry for the long build. Fast forward to 2013, direct to DVD, Curse of Chucky, expanding the lore still to the final movie in 2017, Cult of Chucky. Now we think it's over.
Some of us hope it's over at this point.
But it's still not. Anyway, 2019, they try to do a reboot, doesn't work. What do they do in 2021? They come to the television series. 3 seasons later, every actor who's ever appeared in any one of the movies has now appeared on the television show. You've got a show that from I believe it was the 4th or 5th movie has been LGBTQ plus friendly, has embraced characters in that regard, has somehow made you care about characters that are horrible, has explored trauma, has explored family relationships, father-son, siblings, growing up, all these crazy themes. And over the course of how many years are we looking at, from like 1988 until today, and still going strong, super high ratings. And we are now in season 3, the second half, in the White House, nonetheless, with a Chucky who now has been infected by a botched exorcism. So they say that he has he's been essentially affected by Catholicism, and he's dying from it. So it's like cancer, basically. Cancer Catholicism.
President Chucky has Catholic cancer? Oh,
Catholic
boy.
cancer. Yes. And that's where the show is right now. Special effects still wonderful. I just got to take my hat off to a show that has somehow taken 30 plus years of lore, not abandon any of it, and still expands on it, and is still getting good ratings. It's just, to me, it's like professional wrestling, I guess, is what I'm kind of getting at. Continually ridiculous and still doing well. So that's my plug for Chucky.
I love an 80s slasher. I've seen all of the Chucky movies, and I think that's a good pitch. Like, I kind of want to watch the series now. The problem is my weird brain. I would need to rewatch every single one of the movies before I watch the series, because I want all the, all the in jokes. I want to know all that kind of stuff. So Keith, I need to this is why, Mike, I don't ever see anything new, because I'm rewatching the Chucky series before I can watch the new thing.
So Keith, they actually, in recaps before each episode, show you scenes from the movie that you need to see, and or during the episodes give you flashbacks and or callbacks. You could actually watch the series and never have seen any of the movies. But I know what you're saying. I'm the same way.
Hypothetical you could. I could not.
Not the real you.
I see. I'm the opposite. I have no... the idea of Chucky, like the elevator pitch, I love it. Campy killer doll killing, cool. I'll maybe watch that. I mean, I'm not going to probably, but it's good to know I could jump in, because hard to say. It could be a plain watch.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right. Speaking of shows that remind you of professional wrestling, I do see a theme developing. It's we got King Kong beating up, body slamming people. We've got killer dolls body slamming people. But favorite time of the year, WrestleMania time. To be truthful, I'll start this conversation. As much as we talk about wrestling, I mean, my thing is that as Keith is finding his appreciation and love for it slowly, I'm kind of losing mine. I'm not compelled like I used to be. I think talking about it is more fun than the watching for me these days.
That's fair.
That's just kind of, there's so much good stuff on TV now, and I just, I almost feel like you, Keith. I don't want to, it's fun to watch the pay-per-views, but watching the week-to-weeks, I can't keep up with the stuff, and but what I will say for them is that you can pip and pop. You can jump into WrestleMania. They give you a nice video package of all the stories. They tell you who's a good guy, bad guy, what we're looking for to happen, and then it either happens or doesn't.
That's all I need to know.
Yep. The stakes for this were high in the regards that there was some not nice press and news that came out of Vince McMahon being sort of a monster, and that coming to light in
the least shocking reveal of all time.
But also recently they took billions of dollars from sort of Saudi-backed companies, and that it can generally...
In the least shocking reveal of all time.
So, they sort of were attempting in all of their press and everything to sort of say this is a new dawn, a new era. I'll ask what we think about that messaging. But at the end of the day, it's Super Bowl Wrestle Beat 'em Up time. It's the culmination of your yearly soap opera of boys and women solving their problems through physical violence. And here we are. So the big news, let's just jump in. I'll set the scene for you. It was in Philadelphia this year. I'm so thankful for our decision to not go to the show. It was cold outside. And in WWE's need to weather protect themselves, since it's April in the Northeast, the construct around the ring was, shocker, very visually limiting to those. We have some friends who were there on the ground, and a lot of the pictures they took was just big poles. And so I'm so thankful, from the comfort of my apartment, we got to watch this television show. But the matches were on display. Let's start. Why don't we just, I know, Nick, you had a great idea, but for the sake of inclusion, let's just go down the list. Does anybody have the list pulled up?
I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 nights they did. The pacing for night 1 was very good. The show as a whole, I thought, felt very visually. The television production of it was very high. We did get some reports from people there that this was clearly directed for television. The pace of the live show apparently was a little stilted for those in attendance, which makes sense, right? Because you have all the announcements, and the video packages are really prepared for the home audience, and it's paced well. There's commercials, there's this, it felt very breakneck. That was one of our compliments, Nick, remember, is that the pacing felt so good, but
on
apparently
TV,
apparently live that was less the case.
All right, so you want me? Let me take you down the cards as we're going. So night one began with Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch for the Women's World Championship. They took 17 minutes. Rhea Ripley retained the title. Thoughts?
This was definitely one of my top matches of both nights. I thought you got a tremendous. I don't want to call it coming of age because Rhea defeating Charlotte last year cemented her. However, beating Becky a year later and holding the title really kind of like showed her as the new leader for this current generation or era or whatever they're calling it. Excellent physicality for both women. Again, I've said this before on the show that I find it hard with Lynch's new look. She's much trimmed down. She's much smaller for her to be believable against Rhea Ripley, but they found a way to do it. And they really made that match strong and believable. Hardly any flaws or mistakes. And I thought Ripley's entrance to kick off that show was amazing with the live performance. So that was a really, really, really strong opener. And our friends who were with us night two, who saw the show live, who is, I believe, 8 or 9 years old. That was his favorite match of the entire night. They were there live. So more so than the main event that night, that tag match, he liked the Rhea Ripley match.
I mean, and hats off to Becky Lynch doing it with strep, like actively being pretty sick. And I think I love Rhea Ripley. I think she's fantastic. I think the Ripley Charlotte Flair match was the best match in WrestleMania 39, no question.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. Rhea Ripley's a star, and the fact that the conversation isn't even around, can the women highlight a night? Can they main event a night? Can they open a night? That's not even part of the conversation anymore. I think there's almost 1-to-1 parity in the divisions, pretty much. So that's awesome to see.
Did Keith get eaten by a bear?
He's protecting his home. I believe it.
You got to protect your brood.
All right, next up was the 6-pack ladder match for the undisputed World War WWE Tag Team Championship with a whole mess of folks. In that I won't list them all. What did we think of the ladder match?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Ladder matches are fun. This is where the weather started concerning me because there was a lot of botches I was starting to see, and wind and ladders breaking, and the elements started to kind of make themselves, and it would continue to be so throughout the evening. So that's kind of what I remember from it. But and I think the finish was pretty cool. That was like my most fun surprise, I think, of the evening. With
R-Truth got his WrestleMania moment.
So yeah, it was pretty good. It was fun.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of botched spots, which is always a possibility in a ladder match like that, especially in an outdoor arena with high wind. So I give him great kudos for even trying half the stuff that they tried with those ladders breaking. I thought you got a nice surprise, whether it was a botched spot or not, with the quick belt pull down for Grayson Waller and 8-Town Down, Austin Theory. So, quick surprise for the crowd with that one there. Great way to separate the titles again. And then R-Truth getting his moment, and the crowd that was loud. I mean, sometimes wrestling needs to be predictable, and this was a good example.
Yeah, no, love a ladder match. Good fun. Next up, Rey Mysterio and Andrade versus Santos Escobar and Dirty Dom, Dominic Mysterio. 10 minutes and 55 seconds tag team match.
It overperformed. I wasn't expecting anything from this. Was a bathroom match. I was kind of surprised that this was the one where they threw in Jason Kelsey, but it worked. Good finish. Man, I tell you what, Kelsey and Lane Johnson look huge next to those luchadors.
I know, the luchadors. Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, like, I was not particularly excited about this one, and I'm not a Dominic Mysterio stan. But I have to respect two things about him. He doesn't have much offense. I don't think he's super great, but man, he can get heat and he can take a bump. He can make it look like he is being murdered, and that's good wrestling. So hats off to Dominic Mysterio, even though I don't particularly feel it, but he gets it.
That's the beauty of it, is that it makes no sense to me how it's happened, but they all realized that it has happened, and so they're going with it. Like, wherever we go, the kids, Nick's wife, people just boo this guy. They're like, hate him. And I was like, whoa, it's visceral. Like, Danielle's hatred for him is visceral. And I'm like, whoa, they're play pretend, but
Like, I don't get it, but boy, it works.
yeah. I mean, who knew a mullet could piss somebody off so bad?
Ooh, ever since he went to jail.
Yeah, right. Well, next up we have, I think, probably the most disappointing match of the night. Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso. Brother versus brother. Takes 11 minutes and 15 seconds, and of course, Jay gets the win. Thoughts, boys?
I will not talk about this match because it was really disappointing, but it was what it was. The funniest part of this match was when we were at WWE World at the Convention Center, we took a picture, Mike and I, in front of the giant 50-foot by 50-foot Jay and Jimmy face squaring off, just like every match. You know, they had all the different banners.
Sure.
So I stood in front of one, Mike stood in front of the other. The girls and Ronnie got a great picture of it. And later, a day later when we were talking about it, Mike was like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "The picture we got squaring off in front of Jimmy and Jay." Mike had no idea that picture we took was in front of Jimmy and Jay, and it was brother versus brother. Zero idea.
I had just spent $70 on this hat, and so I was questioning my life choices.
He was going through trauma over his head.
Yeah, I'll say this.
Hilarious.
You know, sometimes this is a crazy example, but sometimes you get this audition, right? Like your agent sends you an audition or whatever, and you're not feeling it, so you kind of don't prepare for it, and you're busy and you're doing other stuff. Like, oh, I know what I'm going to sing. I'll just kind of go and wing it, and then you get there and you blow it, and you don't get the job, and you're like, well, okay. Here's the thing: Jimmy has not really been doing anything. The Usos haven't been wrestling as a tag team. He's been kind of a character guy on the side, and so then you put him in a main event match ish, and he was the weakish link of that match. You can't blame the guy. It just was what it was. Unfortunately, it had such build and it was riding the coattails of such a great storyline with the bloodline that there was hype on it. And it sucks the most for Jimmy because I think that was kind of an audition for him can he be in a big spot as a solo guy? And I don't think we're going to see that again. So maybe it's the best news because him and Jay are going to ultimately find their way back together again, probably. But
Sure, yeah.
But I think we're not the only people on the internet to have said it underperformed.
Yeah, I think they were hurt by the crowd being a little dead, probably because they were cold.
And it was 30 below, so
they didn't have much to play off. All right, so quickly, Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi defeat Damage Control in 8 minutes and 5 seconds. Obviously, Jade Cargill is the fancy new toy and looks great. Love this. The team of the three of them. It was fun. They didn't get a ton of time, but like I found it memorable and I enjoyed the story of it all.
Yeah. It was great for them to come on after the sort of two guys who didn't live up to the hype and then for them to like give a solid entry. It was great for
the only thing that I laughed is that they had this, cool entrance where they're all standing on a lift and flying up, but then like the wind blew in the lights and you could see they're just on a cherry picker. That's all. I mean, of course it is. What else are they going to be on? But it was pretty funny. Next up, Sami Zayn, in one of the few picks I got wrong, retaining 2-year champion in the Picks League, me. But I got this one wrong. Sami Zayn defeats Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship.
For me, if you had to pick one match over both nights that didn't have a lot of time to build, right? Like the main event of night 2 got 4 years to build a story, 2 years with one of the guys, Cody, and 2 nights to set the story for one event. So, couldn't ask for more. This got a couple weeks. So it's a testament to Gunther and his historic title reign and a testament to how over and how good Sammy is. This was the best match of the entire weekend as far as wrestling goes. You've got a dominant champion who knows how to make people have sympathy for the other guy. And then you have a guy who is better than anyone else at generating sympathy from underneath. And you got that when you heard the response when he got the pinfall finally. amazing. Did I find it extremely cheesy in the packages in the final week leading up that they completely ripped off the dialogue even from Rocky 3? Yes.
I mean, it was a whole. I mean,
did it completely
direct
work?
and
Yes.
well, and it really made the question. And this is what I was absolutely convinced they were doing Rocky 1. And you were right, they were doing Rocky 3 because like I was absolutely convinced that the story of this match was going to be Rocky 1. He was going to get the crap beaten out of him, and he was still going to get up, and he's still going to get up, and he's still going to get up, and he was going to lose, but his wife was there in the stand. That they were going to carry him off and get the heroes even in a loss. I think that frankly would have been a better story. Like I would have booked it that way because I think that would have been more memorable if we just seen him get up and get up and get up and just get clobbered, and that would have been so exciting, and then it would have set off. I think they wanted like take the belt off Gunther to move him up the card, but I don't know. I wanted Rocky 1.
You also have to. It's WrestleMania, so you have to. With a lot of the booking was predictable, which is what I think they had to do. You have to have a couple of swerves, and I think this is one where even though I think the story of it belied the ending, like it gave it away. It could have been even more surprising. What I loved, I think, as far as WrestleMania moments go, this was the best one. I think it, for me, is better than the Cody thing, which we'll talk about when we get there. Just because you can overplay your hand, and I think that's sort of my issue with Cody now. But we'll get there. I thought it was great. Sami Zayn is one of those guys where like it reminds me of. Listen, charisma is charisma. You can put him behind any gimmick, and a lot of those stuff he's done has been just straight stupid. But somehow he comes out the other side. Yeah, sometimes he comes out the other side like Andy Dufresne, smelling clean. And when he gets these moments that he's had him with KO, he had it with, somehow it works. And I don't know how he does it, but he always works well. He always tells the story. He's committed. I'm glad he got the rub there. I think it's cool.
And at
all
the
right,
argument,
well, as we're running out of time.
I just got an extension, so we don't have to super rush, but we should also just rush.
From who? Who'd you get an extension from?
The person I have my 12 o'clock with, or my 1 o'clock.
I'm kidding.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's not that time.
We need to talk the main story.
Yeah. Let's get
right. So we had So night 1 finishes with the Bloodline versus Cody Rhodes and Seth freaking Rollins. So The Rock and Roman Reigns. The Rock wrestles for the first time in, I think, 6 years? Mm-hmm. Comes back. They take 44 minutes to set up the main event of WrestleMania Night 2. What do we think of the big? Obviously, the Bloodline had to win to set up Night 2. How do we feel about how it went?
I'll start. I'll just be real quick. I think the win of WrestleMania is that what Nick and I said from the beginning. They had to tell the story everybody knew was good. We knew exactly how it was going to play out. In fact, everyone's prediction was to a T pretty much right. And yet, you still have to execute, right? And I think they did so. I thought it was compelling. I thought The Rock, they protected him. I thought he looked awesome. I thought they planted seeds. They did all the stuff. The interesting fact I learned from our friends was that it did not play well in-house. It felt slow.
Really?
It felt jilted. You couldn't track what was happening. The story was not well executed live. However, on television, it was the complete opposite. I thought it was visually, storytelling was excellent. It was just done so well. They gave themselves so many options for Night 2 and beyond. So I thought it was great. They looked cold. They were slipping. It seemed as though blood and sweat in the ring was freezing over, and there was a lot of slipping.
Hold on. All of you Philadelphia people, it wasn't below freezing. Nothing was freezing. It was like 50.
It wasn't 50. The wind chill was like 43 degrees, and when you're wearing granny panties and it's windy and you're slipping around and trying to jump off stuff, the ropes were messed. Like it wasn't. It's scary.
It was. I think it was 38 degrees at that time of night.
So I mean, like with a jacket, yeah, that's great. But I wouldn't want to be out there just like doing physical stuff.
I wouldn't want to be out there in any way, shape, or form. But yes,
I mean, fair. I mean, but it wasn't springtime. And Night 2 was very nice, but Night 1 not so much. So I thought it was pretty good.
The only thing I want to say about night one is I thought Roman has never physically looked better, and The Rock
my goodness.
He's a Greek god. He's just a sight to behold.
Yeah, did he get himself into phenomenal shape for this. All right,
highlights.
So,
night 2 highlights.
Highlights from night 2. Anybody?
I loved the finish of the first match. Seth finally gets his moment, right? Live crowd. Rollins. I'm sorry. Drew gets his moment. They show the camera shot, right, of Seth outside the ring looking at Drew saying, "You effing deserve it," right? So he gets his flowers. He gets his moment, holds the title up. They show his family live in the moment there. So it pays off all the times he said, "My wife was never here to see the moment together," right? And then back to the storyline. CM Punk, he can't let it go. Loses the title. It distracted me. I forgot about the cash in, and that's the thing. We all knew it was coming. We knew it was coming.
Everybody did.
It worked. It worked. Phenomenal. Great. Just awesome. There's nothing else to talk about until you get to the end of the night after that, aside from entrances and pops and everything else.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I don't love Drew, so I think that they knew exactly how to use him there. I don't love Priest, but they're given an opportunity to tell some stories. That's great. I love how they used CM Punk there. I loved how committed he was to his one role in that, which was to be like, I'm not getting involved, but then be a shit stirrer when the time came. Excellent usage of him. Just night 2 was like the best part of night 2 was that the way they decided to tell story. There was a feeling that they had committed to stories, right? Even though there's the one swerve, which they've owned, and they told them. They committed to them, and they made them work. We all knew the cash-in was coming, but the way they executed it gave a bit of an element of bait and switch, but then they did it, and it worked. What can you say?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I would have liked to have seen the cash fail. Like for me, because like I actually really liked Drew, and I was happy for him, and I was a little bit like, ugh, do we have to like take the title off of him in that moment? And like,
the reason you have to, I think, and I've said this a couple times, is because it is the only thing that makes the Money in the Bank title / pay-per-view even remotely compelling, is that it's sort of like a free championship, right? And if you don't have that happen every couple of years, there's literally no reason to have the briefcase. It's like we've done it's like King of the Ring.
Well, you do.
Right?
I think it should have happened earlier. Like I eventually started rolling my eyes every time we had a fake out, and I'm like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Like do it at SummerSlam. Do it at like it's just by this point I'd already forgotten that it happened. I stopped caring, and so I was more invested in what was happening in front of me.
That's fair. That's fair.
But I gotta say, like Seth Rollins, the understated MVP of the whole night. I mean, his ability to sell that knee, like nobody sells a body part as well as Seth Rollins does in this contemporary time, and it just there's like it's got a little Shawn Michaels in him. Like I love what he's able to do. I thought he did great, and he deserves some time off to heal up. Mm-hmm. And but like he really held up and legitimized like, you know, a new title or a sort of newish title, and they had to sort of split it even though they didn't split. Anyway, point is I think he was really valuable through this whole storyline, especially with Punk going down. The Philadelphia Street Fight, the Pride wins. LA Knight versus AJ Styles, I thought was very solid. Mm-hmm. Logan Paul, Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, good. I mean, the Logan Paul, whatever you say about him, dude can wrestle, and it's very, very impressive what he's able to do.
I'll only insert into that. I don't know if you guys read. I'm sure you did. Ronda Rousey had a really great quote a couple days ago on a podcast where she was just like, the Logan Paul thing is what happens when they give talent time to rehearse, time to build, and time to develop, rather than just throw them into the main event like happened to me. She's like, my first match, they gave me weeks to rehearse, and people came and gave their 2 cents. It was great. And then after that, they kind of threw me to the wolves, and it didn't help me. And she's like, I'm glad they're taking their time with Paul. And I think that's right. She's right.
Yeah, and my understanding is that he he is very much scripting every single beat of these stories and working on it for months with Shawn Michaels, and which makes sense. Makes sense why he's actually rehearsed all these moves, because he's not a full-time wrestler. But he can act, he can take bumps, he can fly.
The question will come when we get outside of his just sort of internet heat and that sort of angle, whether he's got can he Sami Zayn it, right? Can he be a guy that
could he be a face? I don't know.
Could he be anything else?
Who
Is
he
the
is
question.
In real life?
Yeah, that's the question.
We'll never need to find out.
No, because he's going to wrestle twice a year for as long as he wants to, and that's he doesn't need to do much more.
Yeah, he's YouTube famous forever.
Next up, Bayley beats Io Sky. I thought this was a great WrestleMania moment for Bayley. That was really nice. I was happy about that. Io Sky, I think, is a terrific wrestler. All of those moonsaults off the top rope, very impressive.
Really good match. I mean, really good match. I didn't expect the two of them to have such a technically sound, good ring psychology, super strong. I really enjoyed that match.
Yeah, I was starting to fall asleep, I'll be honest. This is hour 7 of wrestling, and I was like, okay. Yeah. So
it's a lot of wrestling. Well, because I watched it in a couple pieces because I was on tape delay. So I watched the last 2 matches fresh. And so I was like, oh, let's go, Bayley. I was pretty psyched. So, and of course, lastly, the main event for a 2-year story, Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, Bloodline rules for the undisputed Universal Championship. How did Cody finished his story. He got it. It happened. What'd everybody think?
I mean, they had to do it. I thought the way they did it was great. I think everybody called it except for Stone Cold. They didn't pay him enough money, so so the Undertaker came out instead, which actually helped because it added that one thing of oh shit, I didn't expect that vibes.
I mean, what a pop. Holy crap.
Yep. I thought that each guy executed. I thought there weren't too many false finishes, and the false finishes they did do were earned and were sold properly. And so it built the drama, and it did the thing I said earlier. It told the story. We knew it was coming, and it gave us enough of the sort of behind the inside baseball of it all, so that we sort of got the feeling of, when you go see a show on closing night, and so it's the show's great, but you also get that added element of the cast having an emotional response, and that adds something. I think we got that by the faces all coming out and Triple H coming out, and sort of. The only thing is, I don't know, it's just me, right? I feel like Cody oversells that, right? I understand it is a lot of pressure and a lot of stuff, and he gave kudos to Roman and all that stuff, but whereas Roman, lives the character, basically, even in the press conferences, Cody, it just felt a little, I don't know, maybe I'm just jilted. I just felt like it's a little up its own ass, but that said, I think it's the exact right thing you do at the end of WrestleMania. It was time to have the happy face win. I think it starts a new sort of push for them and a whole bunch of new stories, and he's an awesome guy, and his story is compelling. So I thought they really pulled it off, and I thought maybe they gave themselves too much time at the end. They gave themselves a 20 minutes to celebrate, and we started running out of people to trot down, and Seth just had to sell the knee for 20 minutes in the corner, and they're trotting other people in to hug, but it was good. It was fun. I thought they did. I thought they nailed it.
Richard gets a curtain call. Hilarious.
Not much to add. You got all your payoffs. My favorite part was there were a few things. The first thing I would say I enjoyed was the actual match before the first run-in. Mm-hmm. They actually did several callbacks to the match the year before, where they each telegraphed things that happened the year before. So it's they each learned from the moves that happened the year before. So I'm like, cool. It wasn't stupid pro wrestling tricks. It was, oh, I remembered that this happened. Just like you don't see anymore when the cameras are in the back, the wrestlers know it now. So that means you don't say something in front of the camera anymore that your friend who's not there will hear, because you know that they're going to see it on TV. They've stopped doing that. So
it's not quite so dumb.
Yeah. You've gotten a little smarter that way. Then when the run-in started, you're now it becomes the superhero movie, right? We're getting the
it's the finale.
Exactly. You get your big finale. But the fact that they paid off the Shield story, and then they're like, oh, Seth was foreshadowing when he said, "I'll be your Shield." to me, that was better than the Undertaker, reveal, because that was the real finish. You know what I mean? Like, because had Roman hit Cody with the chair, he would have kept the title. But his fatal flaw, you know what I mean? His Achilles heel was his whole character. You know what I mean? Like the Roman Reigns character, Paul Heyman has said, was based off Apocalypse Now. And I forget the character. What was his name? The main character in Apocalypse Now. Brando's character. He became. Shoot.
Colonel. Hold on.
Yeah. He became paranoid, right? And he thought that he had to make sure everyone was loyal and in line. And the reason Roman became that way, it all went back to the Shield dissolving because Seth turned on him, right? And
Colonel Kurtz.
Yes, Colonel Kurtz. So this Roman Reigns as Colonel Kurtz, essentially, right? In that final moment, he could keep his title, or he could finally get revenge on the person who made him paranoid, and he couldn't resist it. And I mean, man, now we're back to 2015 paying off a story. To me, that's the pro wrestling gets no better right there.
And I think from my perspective, because I haven't seen any of the Shield stuff, right? I've seen the last 2 years, and I've seen up until about 2005. So all that story isn't part of it, but it's still clear. It's still clear, and it's the only mistake they made in that match was not getting the camera shot of Rollins coming in the Shield. We never saw any of that. We just saw him down on the mat, which I'm sure they're kicking themselves over. However, all of that is said, like I was in bed at like 11 o'clock after everyone gone to bed, and I'm like, like just on my iPad, and it got me 100%. And I thought the storytelling was great. I thought the match was great. Like you said, Roman got himself into phenomenal shape. It was good wrestling. It was good storytelling. The crowd was bananas, and I thought it was. And the finale was really fun. I think adding Taker coming in at the end was the one like bigger pop that was a surprise. Because you knew people were going to come in. We're going to see Cena wasn't a surprise or whatever, but Taker coming. I'm like, oh my god! And so it was star powered. I mean, I think you're right about Cody in the sense that he is like such a white meat baby face. But I buy it because I think, and maybe I'm just a mark, right? But I feel like that is kind of him. That sort of is his personality a little bit. And he can do heel and he can do crazy. And I think we're going to see all of that. I mean, the fact that he was able to pull Stardust off, the character was a disaster, but his performance, I watched some of like the interviews or whatever, like he really gave it 100%. And so he's giving 100% to the face at this point. And I'm curious to see where it goes next. But I walked out of that like pumped and excited. And I really enjoyed WrestleMania this year. I really did.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait till the next pay-per-view because that's when I would watch again. Like it puts a good period on for me because I'm not a week-to-week guy. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'll pop in the next time and see how this has evolved, which I think is part of their audience.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, it's part of their audience. All right, so that's it. WrestleMania. Thumbs up. For those of you still with us, let's quickly do a weekly rad. Nick, I know there's a new wrestler you're super into that's making their debut at a indie show this week. I wanted to give you a minute to talk about that.
Yeah,
I try to keep up with all the indie action because wrestling happens outside of WWE. I'm one of the few people who actually thought AEW's Dynamite last week was good, even though all the people were pooping all over it. But at the Sanctuary this Friday, there is a wrestler making his debut. Some old 80s vibes coming back. One of my favorite wrestlers back in the day was the Animal, George Steele. And we got a guy coming to the Sanctuary going by the name of the Manimal'd, Zor Greel.
Manimal'd?
Yeah. And he appears to have some definite old school 80s vibes going on. He looks, from what I can tell, bald, handsome.
Potentially crippled?
In a very... handsome and hairy.
But do you think you might have like a logo in your email, Mike?
Yeah. I'm sure it'll show up in post. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, because these wrestlers today, they all have like social media presences. And
branding is very important.
Yeah, branding is super.
Is this
important.
a live streamed event, or are we just gonna have to? What do you think?
No, I believe that if you go on YouTube and PA Sanctuary Live TV, I believe. It'll be streaming at 8 o'clock on Friday.
Okay.
And word on the street is that from a production value standpoint, on the independent, you never know what the independent production value is going to be. However, the word that I've heard is that this wrestler has a team behind him, behind his brand, where his theme music is Broadway level quality, his graphical design Broadway level quality.
I've heard they want no actual attribution, though.
I mean,
Broadway's a concept, not a place.
Broadway wants nothing to do with it. Yeah, I mean, I understand. Like this wrestler has, I'm not sure he lives in society, so I'm not sure how he has friends to take care of.
Well, he has a whole team of doctors and people. I don't know.
Zoologists.
It's funny. I got a mailer. It's like a 6-page mailer. Tells me all about him. So clearly, there's a lot of hype.
I mean, it was a PhD thesis, right? That's what it was. Yeah, it was pretty great. I mean,
yeah.
I didn't understand any of it because I didn't go to grad school.
Yeah, have you ever?
But I do believe like this character was flying his poop, but we got like a PhD.
What was that WWE character who was a little challenged and was not Eugene,
God.
right? It was like if Eugene,
we can never speak about Eugene.
If Eugene and Tarzan had a baby, I feel like it's the vibes I'm getting. No.
Now, could you give us 10,000 words on that?
All right, so I don't know. I don't even know what Nick's talking about. So we're just riffing here. But apparently we'll find out on YouTube. I'll have a link in the comments or in the description. So 8 o'clock on Friday.
Can't wait.
Yeah, that's Keith. That's must see TV. So
I'm going to put that up on the big screen. We're going to do this.
We'll have to talk about a live stream.
We have so much bonus material.
We got to talk about Friday. I think that's my only free day. All right, quickly, I'll say I had a cool weekend I wanted to shout out. I went out to New Hope to see one of my favorite performers, Norbert Leo Butts, was doing a cabaret at the Bucks County Playhouse with Andy Robinson on piano, and he had a whole band, and it was... do you know Andy Keith? I feel like you probably run in circles with him.
Super familiar name.
Anyway, it was great. It was 80 minutes. He's one of those guys that drips so much charisma. He could have crapped the bed up there, and it still would have been compelling. But he didn't crap the bed. It turns out he's an incredible musician, which I didn't know. He plays guitar, he plays piano, he does all kinds of stuff. The only thing that kind of stunk is that but I get it. You're a musical theater guy. You've won 2 Tonys, and you've been in 12 Broadway shows. You kind of want to hear the songs from the Broadway shows, and he did a lot of not that. He did a couple of original tunes, some Dolly Parton, a lot of country, which is cool. I think you want to flex what you do, but you got to also read the room a little bit. That aside,
I mean, so when it's your turn, you're gonna have to sing the Out of Practice theme song.
Yeah, he did one number that was like the one that got away. One show he didn't book, which was How Glory Goes from Floyd Collins. Great song. And I was like, well, my cabaret is going to just all be that. Here are the shows I never did. So, which actually gives you a lot more options. So it was really cool. And then lastly, I'll say Coachella was this past weekend. It's live streamed on YouTube, and they've nailed it finally. The sound mix is great. The visuals are great. I mean, it's mixed in 5.1, so the sound is excellent. And they're doing the whole set again live next week. The same artists are coming back. And let me tell you, if you don't watch any of it, watch No Doubt. No Doubt did a reunion. It's been 10 years since they played together. They represented the ska genre better than any of the groups that currently do it, where they, you know when you kind of watch old things that you used to have nostalgia for, but now they're sort of just old and makes you sad because you feel old?
Like George the Animal Steel?
A little bit.
He's dead, though.
Oh. Yeah, but it lives on YouTube, and some of it's
good point.
Some of it's troubling.
Actually, I love. No, Eugene is upsetting. George, I love.
No, George.
Oh, yeah.
Except when he touches little
Eugene.
Kids and he licks their heads. And you're like, maybe not now.
No, that was the Bushwhackers.
That was the Bushwhackers.
Totally different.
What's wrong with you?
That said,
Wait, unless No Doubt licked people's heads, then I missed that.
They just melted faces. Gwen Stefani is 54 years old and gave 90-minute performance running, jumping, belting, screaming, performing, dancing, skanking, the whole thing. And
Skanking?
yeah, that's a ska dance. Google it. And
Oh, it's like a new verb I haven't heard before.
It's an old verb that you've never heard before. And it was awesome. And they were tight as a band, musically incredible, just showed the kids how to do it. Because a lot of the new kids, your Olivia Rodrigos and stuff, as much as I love them musically, performance-wise, it's very droll. It's very droll. Like, here I am, I'm standing here, I'm singing the song. You love it. And No Doubt was like, no, this is how we used to do it back in the day. So they stole in my opinion, they stole the weekend. Check it out. Nick, we talked. Keith, Weekly Rad, and let's get out.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'll be very quick. It's a love story. It's a love story between me and a chicken. So my father has a whole bunch of chickens here that I'm taking care of, and he's got this. These are like the best treated chickens in all of space and time. They have like a huge yard all to themselves in a coop that it's heated and it's got all these things. Anyway, lots of eggs. But there's one chicken. Most of them are orange. There's one gray chicken who is a survivor from my brother's coop that got wiped out by a bear. And she's a soft little gray chicken, and she's too afraid to go outside. I think partially because of the bear attack or whatever. So I feel bad for her. She seems fine. She can go out if she wants to. She just chooses not to. But when I go out to feed them in the morning, they all come running out, and I throw some food out for them to play with. And then I go inside the coop to collect the eggs, and I get to spend some time with this little gray chicken one-on-one. And so I hand feed her some of her treats because I didn't get them all the time. So she likes to be pet. She likes to come up. And so this poor chicken who doesn't like to go outside, I like to spend a little special time with this sweet gray chicken. And apparently, my brother Sean says that the gray ones are particularly sweet and will raise anything you put near it. And so it actually raised ducks that he had ducks from eggs. And so the little gray chicken, raised the little ducklings and then was very confused when they hopped in the pond. So anyway, I love my little gray chicken. I'm going to miss her when I go back to New Jersey.
So gray chickens are genetically predisposed to be kinder and more nurturing than other colors.
So says my brother, who could be full of shiz but it does seem as though it is a different species, so quite possible.
I'm taking this as gospel.
100%. I mean, we said it on the internet, so it must be true.
That's, I don't know, maybe the cutest thing I've ever heard. So that said, you know what, folks? It's been a long show. A lot to talk about. Maybe some things you liked, maybe some things you didn't like. But whatever you do, don't let anyone yuck your yum. Keep on doing those things you find fun. And until the next time I get these Manimals together, keep on geeking on.